Guys, welcome to a brand new webinar this month. Um, I can see a lot of y'all already piling in. Here's what I want y'all to do is jump in the chat for today's webinar. It's something I do on my own webinars with Beauty Schools Marketing Group. Would love for y'all to join the chat. If someone asks a question that you know an answer to that your school's doing differently, I want you to be in the chat and giving us your insight as well. That's how you can be part of this today. And of course, if you have questions, you type them in and let us know. But I want to thank y'all for joining us today for our webinar. We are going to be talking about digital leads and grassroots leads. Really just to see what everyone's doing, what the best practices are today in 2025. And we've put together a stellar panel. So for starters, I'll be moderating. I'm Jenn Lyles. I am the executive director of Beauty Schools Marketing Group. And a lot of people know us as Beauty Schools Directory. We sell third-party leads to schools, but on top of that, I do admissions trainings. I have a monthly webinar series, and I'm an avid TikToker. And I want to introduce my panel. So my first guest today is Stephanie. I've known her for years. She is wonderful, and she's from the largest chain of beauty schools today in America, and she's from Empire Beauty School. Stephanie, introduce yourself to the crowd. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. I'm Stephanie Pulley, Vice President of Marketing for Empire Beauty Schools. I've been there 15 years. We have 73 schools across the nation. And I'm responsible for all the marketing and media, including videography and graphic design.
Awesome. We are so lucky to have you. I know you have a lot of insight from a big school standpoint, but like we talked about before, you have individual locations. So you're running things locally. So I think you're going to have a lot of input today for big schools and small schools. I want to introduce our other school panelist, and that is Chris Shepard. And Chris is with another beauty school chain that I'm sure a lot of y'all are familiar with, which is Tricoci, but I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Shepard, and I am the VP of Digital Marketing here at Tricoci University. I've been on board for about 2 years. I've been in digital marketing for almost 20 years, and probably like a lot of people started out doing website design and development, SEO, and kind of worked my way up all through the ranks. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thanks, Jen, for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Love all the digital marketing background today. So it's going to be a really good discussion. I know schools are struggling with that, which we're going to get into, which is also why we had to have on a digital marketing expert, and that is Martin. Welcome, Martin. I've known Martin for years around the conference circuit. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Jen. So I'm Martin Derlach from Generation Marketing. We've been in business for about 10 years, started up in Canada, and the last 5 or 6 years, we're all over the US as well. So we're a digital marketing agency, and I said digital on purpose. We help schools find students, and everything from we sell leads, we manage campaigns, we build landing pages, websites, we have tools that help improve conversions all the way through to the end. So very happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. All right, guys, I'm excited to get into it. I want to kind of give you a quick background on why I came up with this topic and why I think it's going to be a great discussion today. And that's that I talk to a lot of schools. I talk to a lot of beauty schools, whether it's just on through my day-to-day job or on the conference circuit. And I feel like something happened last year. It must have been AI. Like something happened where there's been a giant shift in digital and we're having to think about new strategies. There are a lot of schools that are struggling to get the leads they used to, which is why I also wanted to have a discussion around, okay, so if digital isn't working, are there other things we can be doing? Can we refine what we're doing digitally? And can we be getting leads in other areas? So that's going to be really the bulk of our discussion today is what are we doing to get more leads, which is going to bring more enrollments to our school. And of course, I want to just give a quick shout out to everyone who's already introduced themselves in our chat. Thank you for that. I'll be looking at the chat all throughout this. So if you have questions or insights you want to add, we would love to hear from you. I want to first hear from Martin. Martin, you guys you have a portfolio of a bunch of schools. So it's one thing to be working in one school group and kind of have blinders on. I would love to hear from an overall higher ed perspective. Are schools seeing less leads in 2025? Has this been a ongoing trend digitally that you have noticed, or are schools up? What are you seeing?
Yeah, the short answer is no. They're not seeing less leads in general, but they definitely are seeing less leads from organic traffic. With
Okay.
the implementation of AI and AI search at the top, social is getting lower and lower.
Mhm.
Now, given the fact that Google and Facebook and everybody else who's in that business, their revenue comes from ad spend, they're not going to let AI overtake their ad spend. So what's happening is you need to shift from counting on just SEO to paid media ads. And sometimes it's paid media ads from Google, Facebook, other platforms, but it's also non-paid social ads that will allow you to get higher up, not just content moderation, not just SEO keywords and things like that, and optimizing your websites for SEO, because that's a dying game. But social optimization and content that is free is still a significant source. But the more time passes, the more your dependency on paid ads, specifically Google, Facebook, and Instagram, and those kinds of things, TikTok,
Okay.
are
Yeah.
become more and more important.
I mean, and I do want to get into here in a bit more like digital strategies when it comes to paid ads, because I do see a lot of schools shifting. But because you mentioned it, I've got to ask. You said basically SEO is dying or organic is really hurting. I mean, do schools give up, or are there still some things organically that schools should be doing to try to stay relevant organically?
Um, I'm biased, so my answer is yeah, then don't spend a lot of time on it, but it's still an
Okay.
important piece. You know, it's still writing blogs, still connecting, backlinking to other sites. There's still value there. And the reason I say that is because the best quality lead you can get is somebody reading a blog about your school, clicking on that link, going to your website. There's no better quality lead. Quality.
Website
But
leads are the best. Agreed.
100%.
Yeah.
But you where you used to be able to get, tens or hundreds or thousands, now you're getting ones or threes or fives. So you have to shift to what's the second best quality lead that I can get. And that's why it really is SEO is dying. There's actually a couple of really large lead generation companies that have been, 10 years ago they were, top companies, top suppliers to schools. They're pretty much done. They're shifting their strategy to all paid media because they're not able to generate leads in a way that they used to be. Like there's one in Canada that I know of that used to supply when I ran a school that we used to get several hundred leads a month from them. Now they get five. So it's really a different strategy now. Now you have to go the paid way or the social way and or the AI way as well. There's a whole method to
Yeah.
getting AI up front and center as well.
And schools, if you have been relying heavily on not having to pay for leads and just kind of like relying on your website and organic, I feel like those are the schools that are hurting really today, the ones that historically haven't spent a lot of money. And they're like, wait, I all of a sudden have to spend money. People used to pile into my website. I used to be fine. I used to get hundreds of leads a month. And now they're just getting dozens of leads. Stephanie, are you guys at Empire seeing that shift with less organic leads and having to rely on other sources as well?
We're seeing the same shift that Martin mentioned. And we've strengthened, our buying on pay-per-click and paid social media. But at the same time, we're not giving up on our website. So making sure that we have really great content on our website that answers questions that students might be asking, providing them with valuable information, strengthening our blogs and our blog topics, adding relevant video content, and just everything that we can do to strengthen our website.
Yeah. And then Chris, what have you guys had to do? Is it the same sort of thing? Are you having to do anything? Again, I want to stick with organic right now. What have you guys done to try to still maybe drive traffic to the Tricoci website or stay relevant with SEO?
Sure. So we have a different story. I mean, we had a pretty rough year last year, and we saw a decrease month over month through the whole year. And it really bled over into 25 as well into January. Although we've seen a rebound and we're up. And in fact, we're up about 14% of SEO traffic year over year, year to date
Yeah, that's great.
over last year. And a lot of it's what Stephanie was mentioning. So a lot of the things that we're doing are we're trying to understand more top of the funnel approach and intent. So what kind of questions are folks asking? And they're asking about careers. They're asking about licensing higher up in the funnel because they're shopping around for schools. And AI and AI overview and ChatGPT has made it easier for folks to shop and compare more so now than ever before. And so we're really trying to meet them where they are, where they're searching. And so we've seen a pretty good increase in traffic from that, although it has not resulted in more leads per se, but our leads are still healthy from that channel.
Right. That's really good to hear too, year over year. That really, I feel like gives a lot of hope for schools that might be struggling. You can still make some adjustments and see some increase. This is a question really for all three of you. If you have an answer to this, I know people are dying to know. How do you get on the AI overview? How do you get ChatGPT to mention you as a top school in your market? Someone tell me. I'm taking notes for myself.
Well, there's a lot of variables and factors to that. Obviously, website content's going to be huge. Still, answering questions still going to be huge. So the relevance of everything that you do on your site to meet someone where they're at in their intent on AI overview and/or in LLMs. And so it could be all the website content plus all of the typical things that you're doing with your backlinks to Google reviews to Reddit forums. It draws from a lot of different sources to be able to find the best answer to the questions, to put that in the AI overview or in the ChatGPT. And so when we think about that, we're thinking about how your URLs are distributed in AI overviews or in LLMs. And so when somebody asks a question or makes a search, you might be in that AI overview and a link might be next to your name or next to your query where somebody can actually go and click on it and go to your website. And so that's another form of of search. It's just changing. And so while there's a lot of variables to it, there's a lot of ways to get added there, but it's still a lot of the same things plus a few others, and Reddit's one of them.
Really
Yeah.
good. Martin, what are you guys doing to help schools in that area?
I would add to that AI is really a summary of SEO. That's why I originally said don't give up on SEO. So AI is reading the data and the information for the summary that it provides you is from the best top sites that have the most information that are most relevant. It really is outcome based. So you could have a lot of information on your website or landing page that isn't outcome based. Here's the length of the program, here's the duration, here's the price, whatever you put on. But if you don't actually put the outcome as this is the career you can choose to have, this is the kind of hire companies that are hiring, this is the experience the student is having, all those things that the actual person is searching for, then you're not going to get up there. So it's really SEO focus on an outcomes-based perspective instead of just piling in data like we used to, just keywords, keywords, keywords. And then secondly to that, remember the algorithm is probably going to be very similar to the old SEO search. The other piece of it, and this is just my own theory, not necessarily data, is that your website infrastructure and the quality of how well it is built as far as load speeds, accessibility, all that kind of stuff that we regularly audit websites all the time. All that stuff, I believe, will be included in the algorithm. So if the answer is found on your website, but your website was built in 1984 and it loads in 15 seconds, then the AI algorithm, in my theory, not necessarily fact, isn't going to say, hey, this is the answer from this website, because it might use part of that calculation in the algorithm to provide the info.
You guys really made me think, both of you in talking right now, that schools that gatekeep information are going to be hurting on those AI overviews and Chat GPT, because what you find, like old school, is like, I'm going to say very little so that I can get an admissions interview, right? Like, I'm not going to tell them all this stuff because I need to dangle this carrot so they'll come to the interview. But it's actually hurting you because now you're not, first of all, you're not being authentic, you're not being upfront, you're not building trust with that lead because you're gatekeeping information. And it could possibly be hurting you on the Chat GPT answers because there's nothing to crawl on your website. Like you're not giving information. Stephanie, you and I have talked at length about this because I know that some schools are very like, oh, we're gonna not tell anyone what our schedule is, what our cost is. What approach have you all taken when it comes to gatekeeping information?
Being very open and forthcoming with the answers to the questions that the searcher is asking for. So writing answers in a snippet style format that directly answers their question, providing your tuition information, providing your hours of operation, licensing, as Martin says, careers that you can have, just providing them any answer that you can think of that, will answer the question that the searcher is asking for.
I think that's great. Chris, have you guys taken that same approach, or are you still like, sorry, great question, come to the admissions interview?
Yeah, there's definitely a fine line, between giving too much info, because you really, it goes back to the old thing of shopping on price, so you really have to have value and you have to have kind of that carrot, get in front of a human, have them talk with you, that kind of good stuff. But we do a good job of sharing all that information, but more importantly, we have stories to tell. We really try to prop up our brand. We really keep that story going across all of our channels and all of our platforms to really increase that value. And so while somebody might be going and shopping and finding prices and finding hours and finding out what, all the pros and cons or differences between beauty schools or whatever it is, we really want to keep that story going and adding that value so that, again, they can or they will put in that lead form and they can talk to admissions.
Yeah, really good.
I would add one caveat is on a website, I would add every piece of information that you can compliantly display. On a landing page, the opposite, where you'd want to have less is more because you're paying to get traffic there. You
Yeah,
want to
you want the lead.
Yeah, but on a website, it's organic traffic. When they're finished with your landing page, filling out your lead form or clicking the call, whatever, then you can redirect them to the website that gives them more info. But definitely, there's a difference between website and landing page and how much info you divulge.
That's right.
Yeah, really good. Someone asked a really good question in the chat about businesses that only have Facebook or Instagram pages. Are they losing out on those Google searches? Guys, even the AI overviews, the Chat GPT or organic Google, does any of that pull from socials or is it mostly website? Do you guys know?
Talking about AI,
That being an element of it, AI, yeah.
not on Google search, it doesn't. The Google
Okay.
search AI doesn't. If you use Chat GPT, yeah, it does look at it even reads Reddit and other things like that, but definitely
Okay.
the search is not going to go out to other platforms to get its info.
Okay, very good. So, oh, sorry, Chris, did you have something to add to that?
Oh, Martin. Yeah, I was just going to say, yep, that's right, Martin. And I would say to answer the question, if you don't have a website, I certainly would, because that's your domain. You own it. You could add anything you want to it. You can do what you want to it. And certainly that's telling your story and adding your value, which is harder to do on another platform that somebody else owns and really controls.
Yeah. Kayla brings up a good point too. You want to make sure that you're not saying anything. This is another thing is that, there are some schools that just aren't really compliant in what they're saying and they're over promising things. So even when we're talking about things like careers, we have to be very careful on how we word things like that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Let me ask another question here from the chat. What's your strategy with diversifying ad categories, topics enough to have one click answer, especially working with budget conscious ad spend allotment? What's your strategy with diversifying ad categories and topics enough to have a one click answer? Can anyone take that? I'm not sure I fully understand it, but maybe one of you guys that are more technical will get it.
I don't know if I understand the question, but if I was owner of a school, and I had, let's say, $1,000 to spend, I would spend 100% of that money towards people bidding or searching my brand name.
I
So
love that you said that. Thank you for saying that. Okay.
yeah, so because those are the highest quality leads, and in turn, if you're optimized well, they should be the cheapest leads as well.
Yeah.
Before you start diversifying, if you look at lead quality, forget about source for a second because there's different sources, but people searching for your particular school brand name is the highest quality. The second highest quality would be people searching for your program. So if it's hairstyling, and then third one might be people searching for I want to change careers or I want to do a different job, more generic. So you're kind of going down, or I guess upwards in the funnel from a quality perspective. So to diversify is you want to make sure that the lowest in the funnel you're getting at first, and then your diversification is going upwards in the funnel. And then different sources are different parts of the funnel. Like for example, Google search might be the lowest. Facebook or Google display ads or TikTok might be the higher in the funnel. That's the diversification because you're spreading out of what they're searching for, but then you're also potentially spreading out different geographies and stuff like that.
Okay, so this is a perfect pivot, guys. Let's start then talking about some paid ad strategies since, I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's what that question was talking about. I'm with you on this. For starters, if organic is dying and you have to spend more money or you have to start spending money on Google, or are schools, Martin, that you're working with, are they just then having to up their budget to compensate for low organic? Or can they, or are you seeing schools still spend around the same year over year?
It's hard to answer that because we work with such a diverse group of schools. We've got lots of schools that are growing, so they're just putting more money into it. I think their schools are definitely spending the same amount of money as they used to on SEO. That has not
Right.
reduced that I've seen because it's a couple people that are writing content and that are doing all the social stuff. So some schools are spending more on digital paid, some are not. It depends on their situation, but I think I'll answer the question in reverse is nobody's really cutting back on SEO spend, even though it's dying down a bit, direct SEO, but there's still a relative yield back on the AI Gemini search and other searches.
Okay. And Stephanie, what did, obviously I don't need numbers. I don't need total budget spend, but overall for Empire to compensate for lower organic or lower in other sources, have you guys just had to ramp up your digital spend knowing that that's what you're going to have to do to compete in 2025 with other schools and their budgets? Because I can tell you right now, I know other schools, they're ramping up, they're spending more. So
Oh, yeah. So we're similar to what Martin said. We have not decreased our investment in SEO. It's still a very big investment for us and of primary focus. Like we said before, the best lead we can get is one that comes to our website. But we have increased our pay-per-click, our social media. We have increased our paid spend year over year.
yeah. And then Chris, have you guys had to do the same, or have you found another formula to not have to increase spend but still get the leads you need?
Yeah, forecasting last year for 25, we definitely forecasted to increase spend just to compensate for that SEO. While we've doubled down on SEO and we're working harder on it than ever before, particularly with some of the AI stuff. But our paid SEM has gone up. But it's also worth noting that cost per leads have gone up across the board for everyone. Competition, depending on where you're at, is a lot different than it was last year, just because everyone is relying more on paid search. And so that has just kind of automatically raised the cost per lead, and then the cost per enrollment might go up a slight bit as well due to that. So yeah, that, and then of course paid social, we've invested quite a bit in as well.
Let's talk paid social then. Are you seeing success with that? The reason I ask is because generally schools see lower cost per start, 1,000, maybe a little around that for a Google lead. But sometimes they're meta leads, and let's keep TikTok out. Let's just talk like meta specific. Sometimes those are like 3,000 cost per start. Does there come a time where you're like, cost per start's too high, we're chopping Facebook? Or are you guys always keeping it there because you know it's going to help also supplement to Google leads? Like I would love to hear a little bit about your meta strategy.
Well, first of all, I'd say that it's important to be on these platforms. Obviously, it's important to dial them in and get the enrollments out of them, but brand lift certainly is a thing as well. As more and more people are jumping across platforms, they're seeing your brand, they're creating that awareness, that trust, the value, all that good stuff. But in regards to Meta specifically, we found that creating an awareness consideration decision stages or campaigns to take the funnel leads through has been worked quite well for us. In fact, we've seen our cost per leads and enrollments go down, although they fluctuated a bit here over the last month, over the last year, maybe a month here, a month there, that's gone up. But that's probably just been more dependent on our spend. But it's definitely been a great channel for us. And we used to not do it as much, and we've really leaned on it more. We have seen the lead to enrollment maturity. It's taken a lot longer on that channel. So what could be 30, 60, or 90 days. I mean, we could see leads come in as an enrollment. A lead came in last year. It took them a year to enroll from that channel. But it's definitely been a great channel for us.
Interesting that you said you're creating content, which I love. I feel like I've been speaking about this for a while when it comes to creating ads around different stages in the funnel, like you just said, because what I see a lot is like class starts September 8th, classes are filling up, classes are like, that's like the only ad I see
Yeah.
is classes filling up.
Yeah. The we've tried everything, and we've hired video production crews, and I mean, we've done the typical static image, which we still do because we're always A/B testing and testing what works versus what doesn't, and how to get our creatives better, or how to get our headlines better, how to get our call to actions better. But user generated content has been and performed the best for us thus far, and it's free. We usually go out and find something that one of our students has created. We ask them if we could use it, and we use it, and that's worked great for us.
You mean them talking about your school, or just like a regular, or you're taking their B-roll from something and then you're putting an ad over that? I'm sorry. Do you mind clarifying with the
Yep.
UGC?
Yeah. So it could mean a lot of things, but there are a lot of trends out there that these students are aware of and that they do. Either it's on TikTok or Meta for this instance. And so one would be a day in the life of, a lot of students would do the day in the life of their college student, and they would start, and record themselves through their whole day. And they would post it. And those generally do pretty well. And again, it depends on what that trend is. But for this specifically, this would be this trend. And we would find it, and we'd ask them if we could use it. And those usually do well because it's relational, and it's obviously a student doing it. It's not this big budgeted produced video. It's also just not a static image. And so folks who run into this generally stop to watch and can relate to it. They can see themselves in those shoes, all those things. And so those have really big impact.
You're using that organically, or you're also putting ad spend behind that?
We're using that with ads. Yeah. Organically,
You're using that with
we
ads.
might share. Yep. So organically, we do all of our own stuff, and we might share other people's posts, but definitely.
Right, you might do reposts or something. But that's super
Yep.
interesting that you would like literally take a kid on her first day of beauty school, like unboxing, right? Unboxings are really
Yep.
huge. They end up kind of going viral.
Yep.
And turn that into an ad, like how this could be you. That is a really great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Stephanie, what are you guys doing socially?
So we did something similar. We had a student do our unboxing, and we recorded, and we didn't bring in cameras or anything like that. We used cell phones, and we recorded her unboxing our kit, and use that for social media. One of the other things we've been doing is trying to answer their questions on social media, especially on TikTok, like what are the steps? What are the 4 steps to enroll? What are the 5 steps to filling in a FAFSA? So we're trying to answer some of their questions as well. How can I afford beauty school? Because we know that our students have a lot of concerns about how they're going to be able to pay for their education. So we've been using TikTok to answer those questions as well, but we shoot very little with our large format cameras anymore. Everything is kind of done with cell phones, so it looks authentic and creative. And we try and engage, and sometimes we'll go into the schools and we'll ask our students, tell them what they can tell them what the 4 steps to enrollment are. We have the students actually answer the questions for us, rather than one of us just kind of pushing
Being a talking
video
head,
content. Yeah, exactly, a
yeah.
talking head. I couldn't. We have our students
Yeah, no,
actually
I'm with
answer
you.
the
It's like,
question
that's not
and
relatable.
engage with
Yeah, they want to see people who look like them,
Yeah.
right? Like that makes total sense. Martin, when it comes to social ads, I need you to take a minute here and tell everyone that their AI generated content should not be used for their social ads. Tell us what you do as an agent. Listen, I work at an agency. It can be really hard to get a school to be like, will you just give me a photo of someone working on a mannequin so I can use that in an ad? Like, give me, like, it's like, they just want stock, like they don't have time for that. How important do you think it is, Martin, that schools get involved with their agency to help give content for better ads?
Yeah, absolutely. So AI, you should not use AI for ad creation on social, but also you shouldn't use AI like ChatGPT for content on your landing pages or your websites, because AI knows that AI wrote it, and that reduces the algorithm knows right away. So your chances of getting more impressions, better cost per click, all that stuff is reduced when you use AI. Even images, you should not use AI image generated images on anything. So yeah, we sell leads that we generate through Google search only, but we manage meta campaigns for a bunch of schools on top of managing their paid search as well. So yeah, the value of meta is there. It is a different lead. It's higher up in the funnel. It definitely longer conversion rate. You need 100 leads to get 1 or 2 students versus search. You might need 40 or 50. So, but that's relative to the cost as well. So, if I was a small school, I'd probably focus more on search, less on meta, because I only have one advisor maybe. So I don't want to have 300 leads. I rather have that are lower converting. I rather have maybe 100 that are higher converting. So the strategy, if you're a big school and you've got 30, 40, however many reps, a lot of them, and you can handle the volume, then, it depends on the workload, because you do have to. Generating a lot of leads is not the hard part. It's getting through them and getting an efficiency from a conversion perspective to make sure that you don't have too little or too many leads per rep as well, and for all your other systems that you're using, whether chatbots or that kind of stuff. So balancing
So
that.
hierarchy is Google social, when it comes to ad spend, especially schools with smaller budgets. Let's say a school has just a couple grand to spend every month. You're saying put that on Google. You're going to see a better ROI than you would on Meta.
Yeah, you did it backwards. You said Google and then social. It's actually social and then Google as far as funnel,
I
right?
didn't mean to pyramid it. That's why then I changed my hands like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. Yes, yes. We're spending
Yes.
money on Google. That's going to be a better quality lead all day. But I also will say, I also find that like we have some clients and the Spanish speaking programs do very well on Meta.
Yeah.
So this is why we A/B test, right? It's like we have certain clients in certain markets where it's like the English speaking ads, they don't do well, but the Spanish like are killing it and it's really low cost per starts. So I do think it's important to like try things out and see what's gonna stick. Um, Before I move on, TikTok. Come on, guys, I'm a TikToker. We're not gonna get on here on the day of a 90-day extension of TikTok to not talk a little bit about TikTok. I want to hear what y'all are doing. I know there was a question about that. Someone asked, like, how do we get our students more involved in TikTok? Let me just say that this is a culture thing. Like, if you are at your school, if you're a teacher, get out your camera. This is going to be fun. I tell admissions people that, hey, we're going to go tour the school. I want you to take your phone with you. I want you to take pictures of anything that looks like fun. We can stop. I can get a photo of you. Like, this just becomes a culture to get your students to be doing TikToks. But I want to hear either ad wise or organic wise. Do you guys have any tips when it comes to TikTok? Chris, let's start with you. I know that you guys are doing TikTok. You guys do, you're doing both. Did you start with organic and then recently add in ads, or what was your shift?
Yeah, we started with organic. In fact, we didn't do organic for quite some time, and then we just kind of went into it thinking like, well, we've got an opportunity here, a whole another channel to explore, and we did, and it did okay, but once we saw what was happening and catching some of the trends, we started doing a lot better. So, for instance, we encourage every single week for campuses to send us in some of their content so that we could post for them on TikTok. And they a lot of times will follow the trends and kind of do some of these trendy videos, which are relatable on campus, and they get some pretty good views. We also do kind of the typical, I don't know, like day in the life of, or some of our higher video production style videos. We'll share that there as well. But we have a person on our team that manages all of our organic social, which we found to be very, very helpful because it actually allows us to do more quicker. So we used to rely pretty heavily on an agency, and we found the turnaround time to be quite lofty. And so we brought in someone on our team to do all this. And so we have a high turnaround time. We have somebody who really understands our brand, our culture, and what to post. And so our organic's done pretty well for us. And again, it's all about that brand lift. We do get some leads from it, but it isn't anything near other channels. Now, for TikTok paid, we haven't quite cracked the code yet. I'll say that. We are paying, we are getting leads, we are getting some enrollments, but that's our next channel that we're actually really going to focus on in terms of our paid strategy. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you guys have to say.
I think that's great. Stephanie, what about you guys? Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And really quick, Stephanie, before we get to what Empire is doing, just to respond to what Chris said was so important, because a lot of schools reach out to me for TikTok, and I always say, start organic. It's free. Just start it. Like, honestly, if you can't create an organic TikTok, your ads are going to suck anyway. Like, no one's going to watch them. Like, if you just don't know how to create a TikTok, why do you think your carousel ad from Instagram is going to do well on TikTok? It's not. So, because it's such a different platform. So I always tell people, consume before you create. Download the app, just start seeing, the trends, see what's going on, see the style, which you guys will find is very gritty and weird. And Gen Z does this weird thing where like they fast forward themselves. I don't get it. I don't do it, but that is there. It's a Gen Z thing. So you have to learn how to like speak the TikTok language before you start creating content, but it's free. And Stephanie, what I want to talk about with you with TikTok is something you and I have talked about offline together. And that's that TikTok is becoming a search engine. It is for Gen Z. 51% of Gen Z is now ditching Google and taking searches to TikTok. They're going to the top corner and they're typing in restaurants Miami. They're not doing that on Google anymore. And I do think it's going to be the future of them using all their searches up there, which is why organic is so important. So it's not that you have to keep up with all these viral trends. That's not going to help you on the search results. What will is some of the stuff that you guys are doing. So share a little bit about Empire's TikTok strategy right now.
We started out with organic, and we have a team of 2 that focus solely on our social media organic. And we have one TikTok page, main page for all the schools. And like Chris said, we encourage our schools to send us in video of their schools, activities in their school, the students doing trends, things like that. But one of the other things we're doing, since TikTok is starting to be viewed as a source of content for search as a search engine, is we're taking the Google search questions and we're answering them on TikTok. We're producing videos that answer what AI is answering on Google search. And we're pushing videos up consistently that try and answer those questions. The same questions we're trying to answer on our website. to give them an additional place to find us with an answer to their question.
I love it. And I really think that there's some gold in there for schools that they can start using TikTok for. I know it's so overwhelming to be like, oh, these dances and weird things are trending, or like, these audio trends. It was trending 2 weeks ago, but like it's not now and they're feeling behind. I'm like, forget that. Just do the basics of like what you're doing, Stephanie, right? It's answering those questions. It might, of course, the views aren't going to be great right now, but what you're doing is you're building a library of organic content that will pay off when TikTok becomes more of a search engine. And when people start searching things, those empire videos are going to pop up because everyone else was sleeping on that. And so I think that really is a smart strategy. Do not sleep on TikTok. We have it until at least December 16th. So get back on TikTok, guys. Martin, are you a TikTok lover too? Or are you telling all your schools stay away from that garbage?
I'm not Gen Z, I'm Gen old. So no, we are sleeping on TikTok.
You're sleeping on TikTok. Well, I do again, it's gonna be the new organic search engine. So I really do think that here's the deal, guys. I feel like it's like 2008 and I just discovered Facebook or something like that. Like I'm getting on ads before anyone else is getting on ads. Like I feel like I it's like I'm on MySpace before anyone else is. Companies are sleeping on TikTok. They are not, especially schools. I can tell you that right now. Schools are not taking advantage of it. And right now it's very, very wide open. So I do think this is a good time to get on. Before we shift to more grassroots type of stuff, I do want to get some of your input on landing pages, CRO. Like, okay, maybe we're getting less people to our website. Maybe we're getting less people to our landing pages because so many schools are spending more money, so there's more competition. But I always say it's conversion. You can have less traffic and still more leads if you know how to convert traffic very well. So, Martin, give us some conversion tips, landing pages. How do you get people to fill out a form?
Yeah, so good question. So it's funny because when we go to conferences, we audit landing pages and websites for schools. And out of 100 schools that we audit, 100 of them are going to have issues. So there's no one school that is fantastic where we say, wow, you're doing a great job. And to be honest with you, lead generation is really 50-50 as far as 50% of what the traffic you're sending to a page is, whether it comes from Google, Facebook, TikTok, doesn't really matter. That's half the equation. The other half is actually what you're sending the traffic to. And it starts with load speed. So if I was to say to any school, what's the best thing, the number one thing you can do to improve your conversion on your landing page is forget the actual landing page, the load speed. If your page loads over a second to a second and a half, you're losing, under a second is about an 8 to 10% bounce rate, meaning when somebody clicks an ad, 8 to 10% of them aren't going to even make it to your page, even if you're amazing under a second. If you get in the 3 to 4 second range, you're losing 30 to 40% of that traffic. So it doesn't matter how amazing your page is. If it's a slow loading page, you're losing a ton. And
And
then the
that's
whole,
traffic you paid for. That's like you paid for
yeah,
that click.
yeah. Yeah. So, you can have an agency come to you and say, we're going to get you the best traffic ever. We're going to optimize and get you the best people searching in the best part. Doesn't matter if they're going to a page that doesn't work very well. And then, call to action buttons. The other most important piece is the form validation. So we have what's called on form and off form validation. So when somebody goes in and clicks, for example, your phone number field, if you don't show them the actual structure with the brackets and the three, so you show them basically what you're looking for, that's a miss. If you allow people to input letters into the phone number field instead of numbers, that's a miss. If on
Nothing
mobile,
pisses me off more than that. Because then the numbers, you have to press keypad, and then the numbers are this small at the top, and then you type in the wrong nothing pisses me off more than
yeah,
that.
yeah, and
I love it.
you can go to huge company banks, for example, when they go to their forums and they have that. It's just silly because data input and data validation is more important when you're filling out a bank loan, for example, than you are a lead form for an inquiry. So
Yeah.
there's the form itself. You know, a lot of schools will allow all kinds of data that without validating it on the form. And then there's tools that we use a lot of time is where you're actually sending the phone number or the email in real time to a third-party validator. Like a phone number takes under a quarter of a second to validate. So when we get a phone number inputted, if it's validated on the form, meaning it's got the proper area code, that the area code exists in the US or Canada, or depending on whatever country they're in, then we, as soon as they tab off of that field, we send that out and get it verified within a quarter of a second. We know if it's a phone number that's not active on a US network right now, we give them a little X mark, X. So we know the user knows to go back and fix it, right? So
Okay.
form validation would be the second key thing. You know, we literally, if you check 100 schools landing pages, all 100 of them will have some challenges. Um, we've got about 15 or 16,000 landing pages that are active running right now. So
Mhm.
every time we find a little, hey, if we move this, if we make this little thing wiggle here, or if we turn this from a light green to a darker green, if you get 0.01 of a conversion, all those things end up adding up to, you know, the average school is probably getting 2 to 3 leads out of every 100 clicks that come to their landing page. You can get it up to 7 or 8 if by improving your landing page. What you're
Yep.
sending to the landing page is also relevant, but if you're getting 2 to 3 or 4% conversion, click to lead conversion, meaning out of 100 clicks, you're getting 3 to 4 leads, you're average or below. You should be able to get 6, 7, or 8, and some really, really niche markets can get up to 15 leads out of every 100 clicks. So those are the things that I
Yeah.
would focus on. I
That's
could
a
do,
really good benchmark.
yeah, I would say we could do a 3 hours seminar just on landing page best practices,
Well, the
which
only
is
thing else I will say with landing pages is look on your freaking phones. I mean, do you know how many times schools are just so like looking at their desktops, looking at their laptops when most of your leads are like on their phones filling out a form? So mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. You need to see what your landers look like on a mobile device. That to me is what matters the most. Really, really good advice there. Okay. We don't have a ton of time left. And so I need to get into other things, other ways schools can get leads, which by the way, I do want to circle back. Those are free. Okay. So like changing things on your website. Yeah, if you have a website developer, you might have to pay them for your time. I'm assuming y'all already have like so many hours with a website developer. So those are the simple things you can change. So A/B test things, A/B test a color of a button. All those things really do add to getting more leads. So that is, again, not something you have to pay for. TikTok, not something you have to pay for. You can go ahead and get a free account. I would do a creator account. I would not do a business account until you're ready to do ads. Then you can switch it over. That way you can take advantage of all the of like the music that's not copywritten, because businesses can't take advantage of copywritten music on their business pages, but creators can. And again, you can switch from creator to a business really easily on TikTok. So those are my 2 cents there. I want to chat a little bit about indirect marketing. It's kind of old school. Some schools are doing billboards. Some are taking out ads in like a yearbook, whatever. Just like they're finding all ways to get their name out. I want to ask my panel here, Chris, how do you feel about that? Or are you just pro digital? Would you spend any money on a billboard or anywhere
Well,
else?
my title says it all, VP of Digital Marketing. So yeah, I like, oh man, it's just so rough to, I know that nowadays, especially with some of the electronic, billboards and all of that, you can really understand metrics around it, or at least they say you can. I just don't see a need for it. There's plenty of things you can do online digitally to get in front of the people who are looking for you. If we're talking about brand lift or those kind of things, that certainly could work, but we just don't do a lot in that form. There are other things that we do, and you might want to talk about them, but I mean, we host events and we do like high school on-site visits and different things like that, but definitely not non-traditional digital marketing or marketing. We don't do that.
Yeah, I would say a lot of schools that have smaller budgets might opt for something like that. Martin will tell you pull your bench ad and every cent you took of that, put that on Google. Would that be right, Martin?
Yeah, there's a couple exceptions. Like say you're a beauty school in a mall or a plaza, I'd probably get a billboard inside the mall or the bus shelter right in front of the mall. But you're right there. The
Yeah.
only other one we do some drip campaigns. Communication campaigns to past leads where we actually send mailers, actual physical mail to. That's got some effectiveness, but that's probably the only thing outside of digital that I would probably think about doing. And
Okay.
events is an obvious one for
Yeah,
especially when
let's talk about events then, specifically high school. I mean, because I know a lot of schools during COVID, they stopped doing high school visits and then they really just didn't get back into it. Um, Honestly, I would say it's mostly time. I don't think that they don't want their admissions person away from the desk where they should be like interviewing people and that kind of thing. So some schools can afford to have someone extra on staff to do events. Stephanie, are you guys in high schools? What are y'all doing this year?
We are in high school. We do find that a lot of high schools still don't want our team coming in. So we try and attend high school career fairs wherever we can. And we are building out a new high school strategy for this year, but also try and host the guidance counselors to your school so that you can give them a tour of your school, offer them a service. You know, we might offer them a pedicure or manicure, take them around your school and kind of make them an advocate, you know, on your school. And if you can bring a bunch of high schools in at the same time, then that actually works out better than trying to get into these high schools one after the other.
I mean, you're so right. It's the counselors that are required to meet with seniors before they graduate, right? Like a senior can't slip through the cracks. They have to meet with them and at least share some sort of plan. And if that is a more non-traditional student or someone who they know is more hands-on learner or doesn't want to go to a four-year university, you want Empire to be top of mind. So you're already getting in there with them. Someone put in the chat that they do a high school counselor lunch. I think that's fantastic. That's exactly what you should be doing. You just need to be top of mind for them. Outside of high school, Chris, are there other events you do?
Well,
Open houses,
our high
anything
school,
like that?
yeah, we do the typical high school events like Stephanie mentioned. We also have summer camps now, and so we invite students to our camps where they can learn more and be more interactive. We started that this year and saw a pretty good turnout for that. Obviously, we have our Beauty Blitz event that happens every year where we bring in all of our students and then a lot of referrals from that where it's a student beauty competition. And so we get a lot of turnout for that, which is just a lift in our brand and marketing. So that's kind of non-traditional. But yeah, aside from that, it's mostly a lot of these events that we have on campuses or on site, and then our high school program.
Love it. Okay, and then I gotta ask about referrals because it's the number one lead source. Website might be the number one digital source, but the best conversion you'll ever get is a referral every day. Someone who went to your school, someone who is happy, and they're telling their friends to go to Tricoci or to go to Empire. I would love to hear, Stephanie, are you guys doing anything and or is that something that's on your radar to ramp up this next year? What do you guys do for referrals?
We ask our current students for referrals. We ask our salon customers for referrals. We engage with our alumni for referrals. And then all of our schools, they attend regular community events out there speaking to the community. And our schools attend parades and Chamber of Commerce events. And I mean, you name it in the community, we're attending it. And we're consistently asking for referrals. Hey, do you know anyone that might be interested in beauty school? So we're constantly trying to increase our brand awareness out in the community. And then we're actively asking for referrals at all times.
I love it. Chris, what about you guys? What do you all do for referrals?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we really focus on referrals. Again, it's generally the lead to enrollment on that is about 17 to 20%, which is if you think about not having to pay for any kind of marketing or advertising for that, that's great. And so we do it on our orientation days, first day of class, and then of course all through the school year. And like Stephanie said, our events and other things. So we definitely focus on that, and that's part of our strategy. Even when we forecast our marketing for the next year, we add referrals into that.
Love it. And the best referral is an organic type of referral where you're not even asking for them. You know, if you have really good education, people are going to tell other people about their school. Like I once had a restaurant. My husband has been a restaurant manager forever. And I met with the owner at some point and we talked about like, increasing business with like their own fan base. And I'm like, if your food is good, people are going to Instagram it. Like if you have good food, people are going to tell other people, I had the best meal of my life here. And if you want your school to get more referrals without you actually having to ask for it, here's a great idea. Have great education, have amazing teachers, like make school great, like make it a place people want to be. And this will just happen organically, you guys. You won't have to beg for a referral. Martin, thoughts on referrals? I know you work with a lot of schools.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely an important piece. We've actually, so we built a conversational AI appointment booking tool, which basically AI calls you, and we built in referrals right on the appointment booking. So the actual agent asks the person coming in for an interview or going into a virtual interview whether they have someone that they can bring with them to support them through the process and blah 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 blah. So the typical script, but it starts right at the beginning of appointment booking. So one of my favorite clients has 40% of their students are from referrals. So, and they spend lots of money on digital, but yeah, 40%. But if you walk into that school, you can feel it feels like a one big family. The students are happy. They love the place. They love what they're doing. It just it's so obvious how they're getting the referrals. I don't think they're even that formal as far as process wise. It's just a really, really great environment. And, the numbers speak for themselves. Almost half their students are for free, basically. And they're,
Yeah, I think that's great. Kayla asked about referral programs and can you give incentives? I'll let y'all answer. I will just say that you can get referrals at different stages. Like Martin just asked, like you could literally ask someone in the admissions office, you could say it there without saying like, hey, can you write down 5 people? And like, that's like old school admissions, right? Like they'd have a piece of paper and you're like, can you write down 5 of your friends and I'm going to call them later? Like, don't do that. But you could simply say like, you are more likely to be a successful graduate on time if you go to school with a friend. Do you know anyone in your life that you think would like to go to school with you? I know a lot of people like to start together as friends. That's a more like organic, let's have a conversation. That is going to be probably different than when you reach out to your alumni. So when it comes to incentives, Chris, can you give incentives with referrals? Probably
Yeah,
it could
I
be
would say that,
in some
yeah,
areas.
yeah, incentives are a little hairy because if you have compliance and different things like that, it'd just be there's things you can and can't do. So it's not any monetary incentive or anything like that. But to your point, Jen, I mean, going to school with your friend, there's incentives in that way that you obviously can give. We really don't do any kind of incentive. We just bake the referral right into our whole system and our process. So either our call center or admissions, or all the way through the whole entire journey, we're getting referrals. And then the incentive really is just to go to a good school and get the value.
Yeah, I worked at a school where we gave local salons and spas scholarships to give to their clients who maybe wanted to go to beauty school. So we would say like, which y'all know, like if you're going to go to hair school, the first person you're going to tell is your hairdresser because they're doing what you want to do. Sorry if you hear something, my dog is coughing up a lung. So that to me is like go to your local salons and say, hey, if you ever have someone that wants to go, you okay there, buddy? If you ever have someone that says, I'm thinking of going to school, think about our school and you can give them this application and there's a $500 scholarship attached to it. That right there could probably be a good incentive, but I'm with you, like, or give them swag bags or something like that. But I wouldn't be offering like $500 to your students to refer people. I wouldn't,
Yeah,
wouldn't do that.
yeah, like
if you have a school in Canada, you can do that.
yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, so we're all going to Canada. Interesting.
Well, like
It's
Tammy
so
just said,
funny.
if you're
I don't know anything about the Canadian school. I grew up in Canada. Mark and I were just talking about that. He lives 4 minutes from where I grew up, but I know nothing about the laws there. But I will tell you, We know here, Stephanie and Chris, they're kind of strict with stuff like that. So
Yep.
wait, Martin, can you bonus for admissions in Canada?
We pay commissions.
You do commissions on admissions there?
Yeah, absolutely. A percentage of
Wow.
revenue per start. There's a whole bunch of different programs. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, they cut that out here. Listen, it's time. This has been a really great discussion. This has been recorded, so I know everyone who signed up, you'll receive a recording to this. You can send it out to other people. Appreciate all of your insights, Stephanie, Chris, and Martin. Y'all were great. You gave some gold today, and I really hope everyone can, go back, look at your landing pages, look at your ads, take away your AI stuff, and start creating some really great in-house content to make your marketing even better. I hope y'all enjoyed this one. Thanks, guys.
And before you go, one last little thing. If any school
Yeah.
on here would like a audit of their landing pages, we do it all day long for free for
Oh,
schools.
I love that. Martin, can you go ahead and put in and make sure you change it to everyone in the chat? Because I think it auto does it to hosts and panelists. Go ahead and put your email in there so people can reach out if they want a free audit. Most everyone is still on, so that would be perfect.
Should I spell my mark? Yeah, it's if you could include your URL to your landing pages or to your website, then we can get that done for you.
Love that. Thank you for that offer. Stephanie, Chris, thank you guys also for your time. We'll chat with you guys soon. Bye.
Take care.
Bye, thank you.